Hello, today we'll be talking about direct proportion in a graph. So for example, you may be presented with something that looks like this. Notice how we have a table of values at the top, and then we have our blank and empty graph at the bottom of this page. So the very first thing we're presented with in this example is this relationship between miles and kilometers. Now, if we're saying that 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers, that is a directly proportional relationship. So what that is telling us is that we could kind of multiply this by any sort of value, and the relationship should stay equivalent between those values. They actually have what we call a ratio kind of relationship, or that's just another way of saying that those two things are directly proportional. The number of miles is directly proportional to the number of kilometers traveled over time. The more miles we travel, the more kilometers we also travel. If we travel less miles, we also travel less kilometers, directly proportional. So let's talk about how this fits into our table. Let's see, the x value on the top row is all represented by miles. The y value on the bottom row is all represented by kilometers. So I see that I have 1 mile is equal to 1.6 kilometers. 1 mile is found here on the table, so I can go ahead and fill in the kilometer value as 1.6. Now, if you've seen direct proportion in tables, this next step is quite straightforward for us. We just need to find the value that we could use to multiply to get from the top row of the table to the bottom row of the table, which can be found by looking at this pair of partners that we already have because that was given to us, and dividing out to figure out what that relationship number would be. So if I divide 1.6 by 1, actually, hopefully that's easy to see, that would just give us 1.6. So I could just multiply every single value in the top row by 1.6 to find its corresponding value in the bottom row to represent the number of kilometers given. So let's take a look at 0. If I have 0 miles, if I've traveled 0 miles, hopefully it's kind of obvious to you, but we would multiply that by 1.6 to find the number of kilometers also traveled. 0 times anything is 0, so that makes sense, right? If you've traveled 0 miles, that's also going to be 0 kilometers. Next we have 2. If I've traveled 2 miles, I would multiply by 1.6 to find the value of kilometers that I have traveled, so that would be 3.2. Next, let's look at 3. If I've traveled 3 miles, I multiply by 1.6 to find the number of kilometers traveled, 4.8. Next, I have 4 miles, times by 1.6 to find the number of kilometers, that's 6.4. And last, 5 times 1.6 to find the number of kilometers is 8. All right, so what we're asked to find, it says using the graph, so we're going to plot some values on the graph. They're asking us to find what 10 miles would represent. Really, they're asking us for the value in kilometers. But notice our miles value, the highest we have in our table is only 5. So we're going to have to use our graph and extend this out past 5 to help us find this missing number here. Okay. We obviously know that to go from miles to kilometers, you might already say, oh, well, I already know that I multiply by 1.6. So if I was saying 10 miles, I know to multiply that by 1.6 to find my missing value of kilometers. But we still need to plot our values in this graph and hopefully see that it will match. Okay. So we're told x is represented by miles. So I'm going to write miles over here. And y is represented by kilometers. Hopefully now you know that x is the horizontal axis and y is this vertical axis here. And then these kind of represent what we call coordinates. So to find this first position, I would choose where x is 0 and where y is 0, place my point there. Next I have where x is 1 and y is 1.6. So when x is 1, I go to the right and then up 1.6, about here. We're going to kind of estimate these values, all right? And then I have 3.2 coming from here. So to the right 2, up 3, and then point 2 might be about right here. Let's see, 3, 4.8 will be located, 3 is here, 4.8 about here. Next one, 4, 6.4. 4 is here, 6.4 is about in between 6 and 7, sort of there. And then last one, 5, 8 should be easy, 5 and 8. Okay, notice that these points are creating a straight line, and doing my best without a ruler here. We're creating a straight line. Could have probably made that a little bit more straight. Because that is always the way that a direct proportion relationship is represented. It should always be two things. One of those things being a straight line. So let's write that down. Number 1, straight line. And the other thing is actually that it will always go through the point 0, 0. Touches 0, 0. And if you think about it, that makes sense, right? If we travel 0 miles, we travel 0 kilometers also. So we should always go through the origin, is what we call that point, all right? So remember the point of this, all of this work that we've done is to estimate the location or the amount of space that we've traveled in kilometers after 10 miles. So using our graph, it says use the graph to do this. I want 10 miles. Let's find where 10 miles is on our graph. 10 miles is here. We're going to draw a vertical line to find where that value touches the graph. And sorry, again, I don't have a ruler here, so I'm doing my best work to draw a straight line. And then wherever we touch, we'll go straight over horizontally. And my graph is not perfect, but I hope that yours is. And you would see that we touch at, I guess this is 16 here. It says 16. Let's see, 10 times 1.6, if I multiply, we should come up with 16. Imagine that. All right, so your answer would be 16 kilometers. And hopefully you would be able to estimate, if you draw a straight line perfectly using your ruler, you should come up with the exact right answer. All right, thanks.